Welcome to Y-Stick. Tonight you're going to open the fridge. You'll stand there for a second, door open, cold air on your face, deciding between 3 different kinds of yogurt. This moment, this tiny act of grazing indecision, would have been unthinkable to almost every human who ever lived. But the real answer to what you should eat is far stranger than any diet plan on your phone. Your ancestors didn't count calories. They didn't know what a calorie was. And yet their bodies were doing math you couldn't do with a calculator. For most of human history, food wasn't a choice. It was a hunt, a gamble, a long walk that might end in nothing. There was no pantry. There was no backup plan. If the roots didn't come up out of the ground, you didn't eat that day. So what did your ancestors actually eat? Not the neat little plate you're imagining. Not steak and eggs. Not some perfect ancestral menu waiting to be reverse engineered. The truth is messier, and much more interesting. Start with the obvious myth. The image of a caveman gnawing on a giant slab of mammoth meat. It's a good picture. It's just mostly wrong. The nutritional anthropologist Katherine Milton spent years studying the diets of wild primates and small-scale human societies, and her research kept turning up the same inconvenient fact. Meat was rare, plants were constant. Depending on the environment, most calories came from roots, tubers, fruit, nuts, and seeds. Meat was a bonus, a celebration, not a daily guarantee. Here's the part that should humble every modern nutrition influencer. There was no single ancestral diet. There were thousands of them. A group living near the coast ate shellfish and fish fat. A group in the savannah ate tubers and the occasional antelope. A group in the far north ate almost entirely animal fat because that's what. Evolution didn't hand you one instruction manual. It handed you an incredibly flexible stomach and told you to figure it out. Which, to be fair, is a very evolution thing to do, solve the problem by refusing to solve it and outsourcing the effort to you. Now here's where things get strange. Somewhere around 2 million years ago, something happened that changed the entire trajectory of what a human even is. Fire. The primatologist Richard Wrangham built an entire theory around this moment, and it's a genuinely radical one. He argues that cooking wasn't just a nice upgrade to eating. It was the reason your brain exists in its current form. Cooked food is dramatically easier to digest. It unlocks calories that raw food simply hides from you. Chimpanzees spend nearly half their waking day chewing raw plant matter just to extract enough energy to survive. Once your ancestors started cooking, that math flipped. Digestion got cheaper. And the energy that used to go into grinding raw fiber got rerouted somewhere else, into a brain that was about to triple in size. Think about that for a second. The device you're using to read this sentence exists because someone, a very long time ago, figured out how to not eat their food raw. Your smartphone is a distant cousin of a campfire. Did that hit different than expected? Or did you just picture a caveman getting really excited about a rotisserie chicken? This is also where the real twist lies. Cooking didn't just make food more digestible. It made humans dependent on preparation in a way no other animal is. You cannot survive on raw wild food the way a chimpanzee can. Your gut is shorter. Your teeth are smaller. Your jaw muscles are weaker. You gave up the raw food toolkit for a bigger brain, and there's no refund policy on that. So if meat wasn't guaranteed and cooking was the real revolution, what was the actual day-to-day experience of eating like? Before agriculture showed up and ruined the spontaneity? Mostly, it was foraging. Constant, low-grade, exhausting foraging. And this is where modern research gets genuinely surprising. The anthropologist Herman Pontzer has spent years studying the Hadza, a hunter-gatherer community in Tanzania, measuring their actual daily energy expenditure using doubly labeled water, a method that tracks calories burned with real precision. His findings upended a long-standing assumption. Despite walking for miles every day, hunting, digging, climbing, the Hadza don't burn dramatically more total calories than people living sedentary lives in wealthy countries. Your body, it turns out, is a brutal negotiator. When physical activity goes up, your body quietly turns down energy spent elsewhere, keeping total daily burn surprisingly stable, which means the story you've been told about moving more to burn more is a lot more complicated than a fitness app wants it to be. Your metabolism isn't a simple calculator. It's a stubborn accountant who's already decided the budget regardless of how hard you plead your case. Now picture the emotional experience of this. No fridge, no guarantee. A body engineered to crave sugar and fat because, for nearly the entire span of human existence, those were rare and precious, not sitting in a drive-through window 24 hours a day. Your ancestors' brains rewarded the discovery of ripe fruit with a genuine dopamine hit because that fruit might be the difference between surviving the week or not. Your brain still has that circuitry. It just no longer has any concept of scarcity to keep it in check. You feel the same reward for a candy bar that your ancestor felt for finding an entire tree of figs after 3 days of nothing. The wiring didn't get the memo that the emergency ended. That's worth sitting with. The system built to keep you alive during famine is now operating in a world with a snack aisle. It's not malfunctioning. It's doing exactly what it was built to do, in an environment it was never built. There's a deeper twist buried in all of this too. Your ancestors' diets weren't healthy because they were natural. They were healthy when they were healthy because they were forced to be varied, seasonal, and limited by what actually existed in that specific place and time. Nobody had access to unlimited refined sugar because refined sugar didn't exist yet. Nobody could overeat fat easily because fat was hard to come by and burned fast when it was found. The diet wasn't disciplined. It was constrained. There's a very big difference between choosing restraint and simply not having the option to break it. And this is the quiet joke sitting underneath the entire modern wellness industry. An enormous amount of money is spent trying to recreate, through willpower and supplements, a condition your ancestors achieved by accident because the food they wanted simply wasn't available yet. So when someone tells you to eat like a caveman, ask them which caveman. The one on the coast eating shellfish. The one in the Arctic eating almost entirely animal fat. The one in the tropics living mostly on fruit and tubers. There's no single blueprint hiding in your DNA waiting to be unlocked by a 12-week program. There is only a body built for flexibility, shaped by scarcity, now living in a world of abundance it has no evolutionary memory of. Consider what a normal day of eating actually looked like, stripped of the campfire. You wake up hungry because you went to sleep hungry, because dinner was whatever was left over from yesterday's foraging, split among everyone who needed it. There's no cereal aisle. There's no guaranteed breakfast. You walk, you dig, you climb. You watch the ground for a shape that might be a route worth pulling, or a track that might mean something worth following. Hours pass this way. Sometimes the walk produces almost nothing, and the day just quietly narrows around less food than you hoped for. Other times someone finds a beehive, and for a few minutes the entire group experiences something close to pure joy, because honey was, for most of human history, the closest thing to a jackpot the natural world had to offer. That single detail tells you almost everything about why your brain is wired the way it is. Sugar wasn't a trap back then. It was a reward so rare that craving it made perfect sense. Your ancestors who felt intense, borderline irrational excitement about a wild beehive were the ones who stopped, took the risk, endured the stings, and got the calories. The ones who shrugged and walked past it unmoved didn't get an evolutionary advantage for their restraint. They just got less food. Which means, in a very real sense, your sweet tooth isn't a flaw in the system. It's the system working exactly as designed, just aimed at a world that no longer requires that kind of desperation. It's worth pausing on how differently this experience must have felt depending on where you happened to be born. A child growing up near the coast learned to read tide pools the way you read a menu. A child in the far north learned that fat, not fruit, was the difference between warmth and hypothermia, so an animal killed in autumn wasn't just food, it was survival stored in advance for a season with nothing else to offer. A child in dense tropical forest grew up surrounded by more edible plant variety in a single square mile than most modern grocery stores stock in an entire year, and simply had to learn which of it wouldn't make them sick. None of these childhood. All of them produced the same species. That's the part that tends to get lost whenever someone tries to sell you a single ancestral formula in a tub with a mountain on the label. There's also a quieter irony hiding in how food was shared. In most foraging societies, a successful hunt wasn't hoarded. It was distributed, often according to strict social rules about who got which part and in what order. Meat, when it did arrive, functioned less like a meal and more like a social event, a currency of obligation and reputation as much as nutrition. Your ancestors weren't just solving a biological problem when they ate together. They were maintaining an entire web of relationships that determined whether they'd be fed the next time the hunt failed. Dinner wasn't just dinner. It was insurance, which puts a strange spin on your own dinner table. You can eat alone in silence, scrolling through a screen, without a single social cost. Your body doesn't know that's supposed to be unusual. It still expects food to arrive wrapped in company, in obligation, in the quiet reassurance that comes from eating alongside people who will return the favor later. When a meal today feels a little hollow despite being nutritionally complete, that might be exactly why. The calories showed up. The context didn't. Here's the twist most people. Agriculture, when it eventually arrived, wasn't a nutritional upgrade. In many places, it was closer to the opposite. Skeletal evidence from early farming communities shows a measurable drop in height, a rise in tooth decay, and clear signs of nutritional stress compared to the foragers who came before them. Farming produced more total food, and that's exactly why populations grew. But more food wasn't the same as better food. It was often a narrower, starchier, less varied diet, traded for the reliability of not starving during a bad season. Civilization, in other words, was a deal your ancestors made not because the new diet was healthier, but because it was more predictable. Reliability beat quality, and it still mostly does. Here's the part that should actually change how you think about tonight's dinner. Your hunger isn't broken. Your cravings aren't a personal failure. They are an ancient alarm system, tuned for a world that no longer exists, still ringing at full volume every time you walk past a bakery. Understanding that doesn't hand you a diet plan. It hands you something more useful. Context. The knowledge that the voice in your head insisting you need that second helping isn't weakness. It's a 2 million-year-old survival instinct that never got the update. So tonight, when you open that fridge and stand there deciding between 3 kinds of yogurt, remember what that moment actually is. It's not a failure of discipline. It's not a modern problem. It's the oldest question your species has ever asked, wearing a new outfit, standing in a kitchen instead of a savanna, still just trying to figure out what to eat next.